Hello, friends. Today we have one of the wonderful guests on the Let's Talk podcast. We have Mr. Gurucharan Gandhi. I know him quite a while from last 2 decades. And thank you so much, Gurucharan sir, for coming on the Let's Talk show. It's been an honor having you on our podcast.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
So, before we go for the wonderful question pertaining to the books which you have authored, I would like to ask you kindly share with our audience, our viewers, the brief introduction about yourself.
My name is Gurucharan Singh Gandhi, more commonly referred to as Guru by my friends and colleagues. I currently head HR for a fashion and lifestyle company. Total years of experience about 20 plus in wide sectors ranging from pharmaceuticals to life insurance, financial services, and now the exciting world of fashion. Alongside work, had the fortune of experimenting and finally been able to write 3 books. First one was published in 2016. It's called Kabir in Corporates, subsequently translated in Hindi and Marathi. The second one was in 2021. It was called Echoes of Gasping Soul. And finally, the third one that got published in the early 2023 is Tattoo Trails. 3 distinct genres. So in that sense, a fairly balanced life between work and pursuit of leisure.
Yeah, even you move from non-fiction to fiction, and this is what the transformation. So before we go for the next question related to the books, my favorite question which I would like to learn from you, and I believe that this will be very helpful for all our audience. I have seen you in many sessions, and you have been an inspiration and the charisma what you carry along with you. How do you see life?
Oh, that's a fairly complex question. At one level, I see life as free-flowing, easy. It has a mind of its own. We try to control it, plan it. We want to go it exactly the way we want it. But I guess the essential nature of life is that it is always in flux. It's always on move. It has a mind of its own. And those of us who are comfortable with the idea that plans will not fall in place and life will take its own course, I think we end up enjoying the essential beauty of it. And sometimes when we are not happy with the way it is turning out, it starts to play on our minds. I also see life as a source of infinite possibilities. Never say never. You never know what people end up becoming. Have faith that humankind is full of infinite energy, infinite potential, infinite possibilities. And therefore, there cannot be a time when a bend in the road can be considered as the end of the road.
Wonderful. So I remember the lines by Sophia Loren. And God smiled at the top and God says, it's not the end of the life, it's just a bend of the life. Wonderful, very nicely shared. Many people live corporate life in the leadership role in many corporates and the organizations. What made you to think about authoring the wonderful book and putting your all the mind and the thoughts in the format of a book?
So I must share with you, Pankaj, that it was not very well planned. And I would say writing has come about almost as a serendipity. I discovered that I could write almost through accident, with some bit of seriousness only about 10-12 years back. And that also my initial experiments were short paragraphs, which I used to write to circulate with my colleagues, friends, team members. And they were quite an eclectic mix of topics. It was not as if I had a particular genre in mind or a particular theme in mind or a particular range of subject in mind. It is over a period of 4 or 5 years when I started to write those small pieces that confidence started to build that, oh, I think I can put pen to paper or keyboard to computer, put my thoughts, express it in a manner that it is coherent, it makes sense, and people who are reading it find some degree of value in it. From that to blogging, and then from blogging to the first idea that, okay, I have a story that I want to tell, I have a subject that I want to explore. That it will take the form of a book, frankly, was not on my mind. And if you would have asked me then that would a book be possible, I perhaps would have scoffed at the idea.
Yeah.
Similarly, at the end of the first book, even when it overjoyed me that it finally has taken shape, if you would have said, Guru, there is a second and a third book, I probably would have not believed you.
Yeah.
In that sense, I am discovering myself as an author more than perhaps you are discovering me as an author.
Wow, wonderful. What a beautiful answer you gave, that I am discovering myself as an author. So now let's begin with the first book, that the story behind the corporate Kabir. And my another, the associated question is, why only Kabir?
I perhaps will take a few minutes to answer that question, because I discovered Kabir as a fountainhead of knowledge that I could use at my workplace. So way back when I was perhaps in the middle of my career, there were questions and dilemmas and doubts that I was going through in the realm of leadership, in the realm of corporate day-to-day existence. Some of those dilemmas I tried to solve by reading literature. Literature of management, self-help books, MBA course curriculum, and multiple such sources that are available. And I realized that all those sources were only giving me part of the truth. They were describing the phenomena in a manner in which I was getting insight only about one part of the problem. And at the end of each book, I realized that there was a part of me which was still very unsatisfied. There was a part of me which said, hey, I get half of it, but I don't get the full picture. And during that time, I also happened to hear a lot of Kabir, more from a spiritual point of view. I never thought that these two worlds will come together at some stage. And when I started to discover what Kabir had to write about real life, what he had to write about human behavior, about self-awareness, about courage, about passion, I ended up realizing that a lot of this was hugely, hugely relevant to solve the conundrums of corporate life. And one thing led to another, one research led to another. And finally, I had a body of work which I had picked up from the writings of Kabir and gave it my own interpretation as to how they apply to the challenges of workplace. That's how Kabir happened. Maybe there was some destiny also involved. Kabir is present in Sikh literature, in my own Gurbani a lot. I grew up in Bihar and Jharkhand, so the Hindi comfort also played a role. So I believe I did not choose Kabir. Kabir chose me.
Wonderful. Again, very wonderful answer. Now, I would say, do you feel that Kabir is in the current time, in the relevant time, when the technology and people are so much off into their own world, is relevant?
Kabir was relevant, is relevant, will remain relevant. And here are some of my thoughts about the question of relevance. A lot changes, but yet a lot remains same. Kabir is easily 800-900 year or maybe plus, almost 1,000 year if my memory serves me right. Kabir writes a lot about human dilemmas. He writes a lot about human behavior. He writes a lot about what self-awareness can do to you and what lack of awareness can do to you. Those are universal themes, and I don't think, irrespective of how technology or anything else around us changes, those essential things will ever change. Doubts, dilemmas, crossroads, they never change. Human beings have faced them for times immemorial. Human beings will face them for the next millennia or so. So to that extent, I don't think Kabir will ever go out of relevance. The other dimension, Pankaj, that I also want to talk about is all help that is available to humankind, either through, let's say, religion, spirituality, books, or any other exalted source. It all emerges from a certain context. Oriental cultures will give you their own way out of the conundrums of life. Western worldview will give you their way out. Indian views will give you their way out. Kabir is the fountainhead of a body of work which is, let's say, bhakti literature. It's a very, very powerful source because of the following characteristics. First is it shuns ritualism. It says that the way to reach whom you are seeking is through experience, is through honesty, is through brutal self-reflection. And these are universal, these are timeless. I don't think these methods of searching for right answers will ever go out of fashion. Therefore, to answer your question, Kabir was a rock star, he is a rock star, he will remain a rock star.
Wonderful. So now my next question is, why should people in corporate world would be interested in reading the Kabir in corporate as compared to what the kind of other publications available?
First of all, it's never my argument that you should shun other literature and search your answers through Kabir. My argument is, as I was pointing out, each literature takes birth in a certain cultural context. There is, let's say, a Greek literature which derives power from hero worship, larger than life characters. There is, let's say, the Japanese culture, from where concepts like ikigai, concepts like living a wholesome life, kaizen, so on and so forth, they emerge. Let's say there is this Chinese philosophy which has emphasis on thoughts of Confucius and other thinkers. There is a lot of work that has happened, let's say, in learning life lessons from Indian mythology, and thankfully we have so many of them that lessons are a large body. My only argument is that Kabir also represents an alternative worldview. Kabir represents another way of experiencing the world around you, the events around you, the complications around you. And it has some very distinct characteristics. First characteristic is brutal honesty. The second characteristic is very deep emphasis on self-reflection. Third emphasis is shunning mindless ritualism and going straight to the heart of things. I believe if you add Kabir to the existing body of knowledge, you will end up becoming a better human being, which according to me is essential to be a good subordinate, a good manager, a good leader. So therefore, to the corporate world students, if you are a good student of the corporate world, you will say, I will pick up the best from multiple sources rather than being monochromatic about literature which is only one type. Hence, I believe Kabir is a fantastic tadka to this education of yours at workplace.
Very nice. I would like to know more about that when you are about to write the book. How have you prepared yourself, and more than that, what kind of challenges have you faced?
So there is this beautiful doha from Kabir. He says, "Charcha karun to chahte, aur gyan karun to doye, aur dhyan karun to ekla aur na duja koy." So it basically says when you are in the process of beginning and discussion, you must do it at the chauraha, which means you must involve as many people as you should. When you are synthesizing that knowledge, you must do it in a small group, and when you have to take a decision, you must be alone in that decision making. So when I was trying to collect information, I went to as many people as I could. There was, of course, publications from Banaras, by the way, which is where Kabir was born. That was good source material. My own Gurbani was a good source of information and couplets. But I realized that there is a lot of Kabir that was sitting outside the structured source of books. I went to a place near Indore called Lunia Khedi. Outstanding folk singer, much awarded, called Prahlad Singh Tipania lives there, who is a folk singer who sings only Kabir. I lived with him for about a week. I think I discovered the beauty of innocent Kabir, earthly Kabir, living in that place for about a week. And then that's how the collection happened. And then subsequently synthesis happened and curation happened. You asked what difficulties I faced. I think couple, I would say. One is it is difficult to pinpoint any one source which can give you the entire Kabir. Kabir, because he passed on as an oral tradition from one generation to another. I think a lot of Kabir still is on the streets rather than in the books. The second challenge was, now that I had about 1,000 odd dohas and sakis of Kabir, how do I choose which one to take and which one not to take? Because each one of them were gems in their own right. And lastly, the challenge was, how do you structure all the material that you want to speak in a book in a manner which is coherent to readers? Because they are picking the book perhaps not to read Kabir as much as to find answers of corporate world. So how to structure it in chapters was maybe the third challenge.
Wonderful. Now let's discuss about the second book. And what made you to move from non-fiction to the fiction? Because Kabir incorporate and then coming to the tattoo trail and the echoes of the gasping souls.
So it was not as planned as you are making it out to be. I don't think I had a certain step-by-step plan that I would say, okay, I've written non-fiction, I will move to fiction. Fiction happened almost by serendipity. I must also confess that I was not confident in those days that I have enough creativity that I can actually write fiction. There is no intention to move. I think there was some destiny involved, some evolution involved, that I had the courage to experiment with fiction.
What made you to choose this title, The Echoes of Gasping Souls?
So you have to understand the context in which the book was, book was written. The book was written during COVID. While some bit of material was old one, but a bulk of the material was written during COVID. And COVID was disrupting livelihood of everybody around us in unprecedented ways. We were discovering very unique things about mankind. I mean, help was coming from areas where you had not anticipated. People were behaving either in pettiness that was unimaginable or largeness of heart that was unimaginable. All existing worldviews of what you had taken for granted all these years was being questioned. You were not secure anymore. You were not secure with the money you had. You were not secure in the society you were living in. You are not secure with the fact that somebody will come to my aid, either it is healthcare or government or society. All existing rules were being questioned. You started to wonder whether all the truths that you had, whether they are true anymore. So in that sense, it created a quest in my mind to say, okay, if all the truisms are no longer true, then where are we going? Where is this headed? What else do we hold true that is not true? What else is erroneously used as a Baisakhi of sorts to say, this is what will take us towards success, or this is what will take us towards meaningful, purposeful lives. It is in that context that I wrote the book. So, Echoes of Gasping Souls, we were gasping, our souls were gasping. I mean, of course, we were gasping because the nature of COVID was such that the first thing that it attacked was your ability to breathe. But I think much more was gasping. Our fundamental notions about life, success, meanings, wealth, what's important, what's not important, they were being questioned. And that was echoing all around us. And hence the word Echoes of Gasping.
Yeah, very nicely shared. And now, the interesting characters what you choose in the book, the five interesting characters. So, what made you to choose that those characters, especially in the Gasping Souls?
See, each of those characters, in many ways, are people I knew, places I knew. So let me take the first character. The Sunil Paswan is my childhood in Bihar. I grew up in erstwhile Bihar and today's Jharkhand. Sunil Paswan is the memory of all the men that I grew up with, and all that is quintessential characteristic of the culture of that place. He's poor, he's uneducated, he has seen the worst of caste and class, he has suffered a lot, and yet he is hopeful, optimistic, hardworking, he punches above his weight. He's essentially a nice human being. He's the summation of all characters I grew up in erstwhile Bihar, as I said. Or let's take another, Manoj Joshi as the character. Manoj Joshi is an engineer, MBA. He's a sum total of all the characters at work that I see or that I meet. People who believe that education and educational pedigree is the be all and end all of everything, who can't see beyond their noses, who are a tad arrogant also, or who believe that sophistication in language is equal to wisdom, or who believe that only their kinds are good and everybody else or all other kinds are not as bright or as intelligent. Manoj Joshi is also a chilling reminder to me that if I don't remain watchful, I will become that arrogant character. So if Sunil Paswan was my childhood memory, Manoj Joshi was a caution and an alert to me that aise nahi ban jana.
Very nice, very interesting. So now, being as an author, who is your favorite character amongst all these five characters?
I think Sunil Paswan. I just told you why, the background of Sunil Paswan. But he's my favorite because I think he's optimistic, he's resilient, he can think beyond himself. There is a largeness of heart to him. There is this gumption to say, it does not matter where I was born. What will matter is where I will die. It does not matter where I began. What will matter is where I will end. It does not matter whether I am not your type, but you will not be robbing me of my dignity. You will not be robbing me of my confidence. You can't dictate to me how I will live my life. So I felt greatest amount of liberation in writing the character of Sunil Paswan. I want to be like him. It does not matter how educated or not so educated he was.
Now, Corporate Kabir and then Gasping Souls, and now moving to the third one. What made you to write this murder mystery of the tattoo trial?
You asked me a lot of what questions. I don't know the answers, specific answers, dramatic answers to it. But if I were to reflect back, Kabir in Corporate was a serious academic study. Echoes of Gasping Soul was also a serious exploration of the meaning of life. I think I was too tired of doing serious stuff. I wanted a little bit of entertainment. And I'm not like that. So the attempt also was to move as far away from comfort zone as possible. If Kabir in Corporate was the search of an ideal human being, Echoes of Gasping Soul was about celebrating the fact that we all are broken at the end of the day. None of us is perfect. The tattoo trail is search for drama, search for entertainment, search for light-hearted beauty in things. Don't get carried away by the fact that it's a murder mystery. It's a political thriller. But I think it's subtle, it's light, it sits very lightly on your shoulders in comparison to my first two books.
So now coming to my two interesting characters here, Sumitra and Keshav. So how did that come about? In your mind to put these characters in place.
Keshav yet again is a homage to my growing up years in Bihar and all that I perhaps experienced myself as a youngster who was trying to make a place, let's say in cities, English speaking environment, and all the complexes that emerge from this struggle. Yeah. These struggles are not unique to me. These struggles are for every small town boy or girl of this country. But I wanted to have fun with that struggle. Therefore, I made this guy who is very competent as a investigator. He is uncouth. He is not sophisticated. He is hungry for progress. He is dealing with his own complexes of all kinds. Yeah. And yet he is courageous enough to give back to the system, push back the system. And the system grudgingly accepts him because he is so competent.